Welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. We've got the NI boys here today, Jack Butcher, Trung Phan, and Bilal Zaidi. Let's get straight into it, boys. There's a lot to talk about. Our boy Rishi has just become the Prime Minister of the UK, where Jack and I hail from. We're going to be talking all about that. We're going to get into the AI hype. We got to pivot the pod straight into AI like everyone else is doing. So we're going to talk about some... yeah. We got to do it. Yeah, so no, all jokes aside, we're going to talk a little bit about AI hype. There's some interesting things we're finding, generative AI, and then we'll have a special guest joining right at the end of the show to talk about Reddit and NFTs.
Robin Roll, if you know him from Twitter, Rob Alam, a legend, one of the biggest Redditors back in the day, and he's going to drop some knowledge on these Reddit NFTs.
He basically controlled what went viral on the internet, yeah? That was
he was one of like a dozen of the biggest moderators on Reddit when they were really, really like the viral generator. A little bit first. I think we can ask him about it, what happened, but yeah, let's hit it.
All right, so we're going to do meme of the week here. Trung, you shared this with us. There we go.
Yeah.
This is the perfect one. So do you want Trung, do you want to read it out?
Yeah, for the listeners, is the Vince McMahon tweet, where he does 3 successive faces. Each face is more orgasmic looking. So the first face, it says it's Diwali. So the whole thrust of this joke is that Indian people are loving life right now. So first is because it's Diwali. The second thing is India beat Pakistan in cricket, which we can ask Bilal about.
Yeah, let's skip that one. Yeah,
it's Rishi Sunak becomes prime minister, which is obviously hilarious because the other running joke is that Joe Biden, an Irishman, is the president of the United States, and then Rishi, an Indian, is the prime minister of UK. It's like just the UK empire is just in tatters right now. But Dishy Rishi, what a nickname. For people that don't know, Dishy Rishi got his nickname. He was the chancellor when COVID hit and was dishing out money to the citizens of the UK. I don't know, did Jack or Blau, did you guys get any of that cash? Did you? Well, you're not a citizen.
No.
You guys want to wink?
Unfortunately.
No, sir.
Also, I will also pull up a bonus one, which this is the people who were getting concerned he was Muslim, like some of the people who were not on his side. And I think, can you guys see this? People think he's Muslim, and then this response was so funny. He's about as Muslim as a pint of Stella.
For people that don't know, Rishi is Hindu, so just absolutely a lot of confusion going on. But okay, so I want to ask you guys. We didn't cover Liz Truss, who was the previous British PM for 45 days, who couldn't outlast a head of lettuce because we didn't cover it. There's just no charisma, right? There's just nothing interesting. It was like, oh, Liz Truss, the foreign secretary, it became prime minister. And the thing I will say is this, the biggest criticism I've heard about all this, and I'll throw it to you guys for other criticisms because Bilal mentioned a few, was, okay, so in 2019, when Boris Johnson became prime minister, 14 million people voted him in, right? And then he made Brexit happen. And then a couple months ago, when it became clear that he was, I think he got taken down because of a bunch of COVID-related scandals. Like he was partying hard, right, during COVID, and while the whole country's on lockdown, like Bojo didn't care. He was doing his thing, and they're like, guys, we can't have this guy in power. So the Conservative Party made him resign. So 140,000 Tory voters were involved with that, and then Liz Truss, when she went out because of a disastrous budget, a mini budget, which we talked about how she destroyed the pound a couple of episodes ago. So she's forced to resign. And then now only 195 Conservative members picked Rishi. So that's the biggest criticism I've seen, is like, this is not a democratic process, right? It's like 195 people basically picked him as a Conservative leader because of the mechanism of British politics. And people are like, wait, we didn't decide this. So throw it to you guys. How do you feel about your democratic rights And what is other criticisms you've heard?
Well, I was going to say, Trung, the other running joke going on in the UK group chats is that Rishi got his job through clearing, which is, for people who aren't from the UK, there's a phrase called clearing, which is on your A-level results day when you don't get into the top choice university. You have to call this number and you're on the phone all day and you're trying to find a university to go to. And it's kind of like the default, oh, you got into this university because of that. So, which is ironic because, you know, he's kind of the opposite of that. He went to Oxford, he went to Stanford. He's kind of like a very credentialed guy.
Hedge fund.
Exactly. But yeah, Jack, I didn't want to interrupt if you had something top of mind for him, but...
No, I mean, UK politics has been like Benny Hill for I don't know how long. I honestly, completely candidly, do not pay a great deal of attention to it at all. And like feels like every couple of weeks I'm getting a text. There's a new prime minister in the UK. It's like, okay, all right, I'm not paying attention to this anymore. It doesn't seem like a serious line of.
It's not a serious business anymore, right?
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's a great deal of consequence that comes with it because of how temporary it feels. How long is the Conservative Party in power for now? A couple more years, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that, well, you can pull up a vote whenever you want, right? It's just the same with the Canadian system. It's like, if you feel like now is a good time to do an election, but then obviously that runs out. I think it's either 2019, probably 23, 24, actually. Yeah. Probably next 18, 24 months.
Yeah. So that's I think the interesting thing is just how different, and this is politics in general. It's like, it's kind of unsettling how different the ideology of like one person, a part of this group is. You know, it's like, imagine changing a CEO of a business with that, at that scale every 2 weeks, with people have like completely different ideas of the direction of the products they build. So I mean, politics in general to me is just kind of a, you know, buggered up incentive game. So hard to comment on. Yeah. Hard to comment on my, I have no opinion basically.
Well, another really funny meme I saw was, if you want to keep your a computer safe, just change the password to whatever the prime minister is that week. Gotta keep it updated. But no, I think for NIA, what might be interesting about Rishi is Bilal mentioned his background, right? So he did come. I mean, his parents are India via East Africa to England. So very classic colonial
Kenya,
route, right?
I think, right?
Yeah.
Is it
Kenya? Yeah, exactly. The classic colonial, like
or Kenya, if you're from that part, or if you're from the subcontinent, people say Kenya.
So they ended up in England, I think in 60s or 70s. His parents are it's like an immigrant story, right? It's like he didn't come from a rich family. I think his last 20 years, he's become totally part of the establishment. But I listened to a lot of BBC podcasts about him yesterday, and he was working in the curry houses as a young guy. But I think what I'd say is the interesting for NIA listeners is he has been asked about Bitcoin in the past and crypto, and he has an MBA from Stanford. So he basically, people are expecting him to bat down that question because he's a chancellor of the UK Exchequer. Right? It's like, this is not supposed to be a situation where you're like going to be talking about crypto. But you guys talked about this, right? It's like, he might be doing like centralized, what was it? Like digital currency?
BDCs?
Have you guys heard this? Like, is this something that you've seen? Does it matter to you guys?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's been documentation when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer talking about the ramifications of CBDCs and the programmability or the eventual programmability of CBDCs. So if you want to go full zero hedge mode for a minute, the idea of a programmable CBDC is like 100% control of a population where you can, at the individual level, say, you cannot buy this, you cannot go here, you cannot, your purchasing power is at the discretion of whoever issues a CBDC. So
basically China, like what people feel about China, right? So they can basically
and I think he's talked about that. I don't know with any level of detail how seriously that's being considered in the UK, but it's definitely like being spoken about. And I think the position on crypto more broadly is I think, an economic decision for the UK at this point, where it's like, that is a huge portion of the developing economy that if we don't write favorable legislation for in the short term, we're going to lose a shitload of money. Same thing with the States, right? I think that conversation has been going on for a few years, where regulation in these countries that already have like really heavy service-based and like technology skill-based economies are pushing away innovation in these industries to countries that have more favorable policies, are going to lose out on a load of tax revenue, a load of innovation, a load of, you know, all of the economic upside that comes from fostering in like participation in a new field. So I think maybe there's some tension there, or like there's kind of a contradiction there, where he's spoken favorably about the UK being a leading crypto economy and CBDCs being a solution for the long-term like issuance of money and control of money in the UK. So I think you can be in favor of taxing crypto and getting people to work on those projects, and eventually transitioning to a system where you have total control of everybody's economic energy.
Well, that was the zero energy part too, right? You're sending us stuff about he's quite close with the Davos World Economic Forum crowd, and he's definitely of that ilk, right? He's
no doubt. His father-in-law's owns
founder of Infosys. Well, so the thing we didn't touch on is his family's, his wife's family's wealth. So his wife, Akshata Murthy, daughter of Infosys founder, their combined net worth is $830 million, 2x the royal family, which is absurd if you think about it, right? Like that's the thing that was hard to square for me, is like, you know, he has this humble beginning, and he's fully established. Like this is like as Davos elite as it gets.
Yeah. And I was just going to say that, just to clarify, because I don't know enough about his background, I will say I think the talking points of him being like from humble beginnings is kind of like, especially in the last run up of the last election, Conservative Party kind of had to bang on about that, because it was one of the biggest criticisms of him.
Of Bojo. I mean, and Bojo previously, right?
And the whole Conservative Party, essentially, most of them, like, you know, before him, David Cameron, like they were kind of like all Oxford friends. They all did like PPE.
Yeah, 5 of the last 6 prime ministers all went to Oxford.
Yeah, which I'm not against. Like, people going to Oxford are smart people, but I'm just saying a lot of the criticism. They don't know the
price of milk.
They don't know the price of milk, exactly. And that's so what people on the other side would say as a criticism is they don't represent us. They don't understand the, you know, problems of a normal person. And on his like humble beginnings, he went to like a very elite private school since he was a kid. Like, it wasn't like he was like hanging out in a state school, like figuring out his life sort of thing. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, he's clearly a very smart, competent guy, and I don't know enough about him to have an opinion. And I guess that's not even the focus of the podcast, but I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that's something that a lot of people have said since the last like run up to the election. And he's, you know, to quote Kabaddi G, who is a famous character in a TV show Jack and I both like, and a famous comedian in the UK, he does not represent us. And I'm not saying me as us, but that is the kind of sentiment I'm getting from a lot of essentially the brown people I know in the UK, Pakistani Indian people. And again, that's just my friend groups and family, right? But literally probably in the last 24 hours, I've seen 20 to 30 posts on Instagram and Twitter, and most of them have been quite negative about him, which is almost surprising in a way, because like speaking to my dad was like, oh, it's good, like there's you know, it's progress for people like us that look like us, etc. But I think there's a weird thing here where it's like he's part of the Conservative Party, and generally speaking, like if you're an immigrant to the UK, you didn't support the Conservative Party for a long time, and now we're getting to this transition where our generation is born there. People are doing a little bit better. A lot of the time when people become richer, become conservative a lot of the time. So it's this weird like juxtaposition.
Well, there's a saying, there's a famous quote, right? If you're not a liberal when you're in your 20s, you're heartless. If you're not a conservative when you're in your 40s, you're brainless. It's like, as you start going through life and getting real responsibilities, it's like, you know what? Maybe you don't want the government taking all your money.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last thing is, because I think a lot of people listening to this are from the US, like the Conservative Party and Labour in the UK is the equivalent of Democrat and Republicans in the US, but there's like an elitism that feels prevalent within
across all of them.
Well, across all them, but specifically in the UK, I find like the Conservative Party, the rep of it is very much like, oh, you're posh, therefore you.
Which is like the Democrats in the US, right?
Well,
Democrats are much more posh, I think.
Now it's kind of flipped. It used to be that
everything changes. It's like Democrats used to be the
policies.
Yeah,
exactly. But now in the US, it's kind of like the more working class people, white working class people, were voting for Republicans. So it's quite a weird. I think people use them interchangeably, and they're actually quite unique and different.
Let me add a couple of things, thoughts here. Some quick ones was two things that I want to mention of the other criticisms that I saw to your point, Bilal. They're not really us. So one is like Rishi still had his U.S. green card while he was chancellor, and people are like, what the fuck's going on? And it sounds like in his defense, his rise was so quick. It was like literally overnight. His rise. He was an MP in a small town, I think in southern UK, and it just one by one, they knew he was ambitious. They kept elevating him, and then boom, next thing you know, he's Chancellor of the Exchequer. The other thing was his wife was filing taxes as a non-domiciled. So it looks like it was legal, but I think she paid £30,000 in taxes last year. And this is worth almost $1 billion, right?
So that was a huge thing in the press, like a massive scandal. Yeah.
So I think the way I'd want to wrap this up is it has nothing to do with their family particularly, or even British politics. Is like I think we've covered this slightly in the past, but the reality is this now is like it's not white versus black versus Asian versus Indian or any of these color stuffs or even country versus country. If you actually look at the distribution of how society is run, it's like the top 1%. It's like doesn't matter where you're living, what color skin you are, you're in that top 1%, you're all doing the same thing. You're all flying to the same vacation destinations. You're all consuming the same content, and like you're all hanging around and doing the same things, right? It's like you're buying the same luxury goods. It's like, doesn't matter what country you're from. If you're in the top sliver of 1%, it's like the global elite, like that's what you're doing. And they're clearly in that part of society, right? It's not even about like where, it is about where he went to school, but all these other considerations is like it's gotten to the point where wealth for certain slivers of society is like that's ultimately all that matters, right? It's like they all hang out together, they're all buddy, and go ahead, Jack.
Sorry, I was just going to say, don't you think we had like just a weird blip where like politicians and like rulers of nations for a period of time were like closer in proximity to normal people? It was only like a few decades where that happened. Like if you rewind it back
you're right,
further than that, it's like people who own 90% of the resources of the country are in charge. And it's like, we had this little blip where the people wrestled away a little bit of control.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I think technology and media and like the power laws that exist there have like swung us back in that direction in a pretty aggressive fashion.
Well, let's take the United States as an example, right? So obviously, when the American Revolution happens, I mean, the people that George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, they're rich landowners, right? Extremely wealthy. But then you go in the 1800s, you start getting people like Andrew Jackson, and then there's a bunch of shitty presidents in the second half of the 1850s, other than Lincoln. They kind of come up just not particularly from wealthy backgrounds, but then you're right though, it's like you go through the 20th century, like you have somebody like Harry Truman. He grew up in like a farm in Missouri, right? But it gets more and more dynastic, right? So the Clinton dynasty, the Bush dynasty, I guess, I mean, Biden is a lifer, but he obviously has more humble roots. But I get what you're saying is like the idea that there was this period where it seemed like anyone could actually do it. But the reality is that we had Obama, but I think I agree with you though. I think the America's different. It's like you go to a lot of European countries, still very dynastic, which is understandable.
Yeah, and even the relationships between countries, organized relationships, marriages, things of that nature. It's like that stuff's been happening, and to like deny the existence of that sometimes, or to operate with the assumption that hasn't always been the case, is kind of a fascinating response. Like, oh, this guy doesn't represent us is 99 times out of 100 I think that's accurate. It's just like, this person is completely detached from your version of reality. I don't know who said this, but it was like, anybody who wants to be the president shouldn't be the president. that idea of like you wanting.
I think Joe Rogan said that. I think I'm pretty sure I heard him say that.
Yeah, probably true. And I don't know. I think that's an interesting way to think about it. It's like the people that you would want to serve in a position like that, or to have the skill sets to serve in a position like that, maybe, your qualifications being different than, the relationships you have with the distribution of your story or the like connections you have to technology, things of that nature is like probably hard to break. But I'm not a historian, Trung. Your examples you gave there, it was all just like gut for me, but you demonstrated that it was true for a bit.
Well, even take Nixon, right? Is like, I think if we start going through, if we did a thing where we went through, it'd be like, oh, you know what? Actually, to your point, it's like obviously a guy like FDR, who's president for 12 record of 4 terms, obviously died before he could finish it. It's like he came from dynastic New York wealth, and his long cousin, I can't remember his cousin, uncle Theodore Roosevelt was also president. But the whole point, I think you made an interesting point. I think we might have to revisit this fun fact family because this is something super interesting to talk about. Let me pin this with stuff about the UK economy so we can move to generative AI. I don't want to take too much time on that one. So can I hit up you guys on the UK economy stuff?
Yeah, go for it. Okay,
you guys will appreciate this. UK economy is in the shitter, obviously. This is one of the reasons why Sunak has taken over. But Derek Thompson from The Atlantic this morning wrote a very interesting article. It's titled like what the heck happened to the UK economy. But the summary is quite interesting. And I think this will really resonate with you guys. So basically, he's saying that the problem with the UK economy is from the 80s under Thatcher, it went super hyper financialized. It's not going to be a surprise to you guys, right? They've for hundreds of years, London has been an economic center. New York wrestled that away after World War II. But in the 80s, it got to a point where, because UK used to be a manufacturing powerhouse, obviously also, right? But the last 30, 40 years, I mean, you guys are on the come up, like finance. Would you say that finance was like the peak of the economy in the sense of like, this is what England is in the 80s and 90s while you're growing up?
I mean, not from my perception. It might have been true, but not like.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers on that.
Well,
what was your perception like, Jack?
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Because you were in the car factory, so Swindon car factory,
which doesn't exist anymore, by the way, anecdotally. So that's true. That was the biggest employer in the town I grew up in.
This is a perfect example, actually. Is like so for especially foreigners and like people like myself, what is England? It's really London, right? It's like London, and what is London? It's a finance capital. Right? But that's the reality. I don't know about Swindon. I don't know about manufacturing. And over the past 2 decades, a lot of these things have closed down. Like England has deindustrialized. That was the point in Derek Thompson's article. They put so many eggs in the finance bucket because it was a place that could be most competitive because of network effects and a history and the money that's already swashing around that area. So,
but Trung, can I ask, and just while we're talking about that, how different is that to the other developed economies like the US?
Oh, you're right.
Western Europe, because normally you go from like primary sector, secondary to tertiary, right?
Well, to answer your question, he pulled up stats. He's like, England has deindustrialized more than any of these other countries.
Oh, got it.
And they've lost more productivity than these other countries. So exactly to your point, as you get richer, you want to move away from manufacturing and get into services, right? Higher margin, and it's just a natural path. Of,
safer, like you're country. Not worrying about being stuck in a coal mine or whatever. Yeah.
But like, you nailed it. That's the path it took, but they deindustrialized so fast, and they haven't replaced it with like robotics, and they haven't replaced it with, and they've gone so heavy on finance. And then after 2008, great financial crisis, that engine completely broke. So what has England done over the past decade? You guys will know this word: austerity, right? A lot, cut back on spending, higher taxes, and then as the economy hit the shitter, the Conservative Party, who did they blame? They blamed the EU. Then you get Brexit. So that was kind of what's going on with the UK economy.
That's a great summary, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the narrative is so different. We've talked about this a bunch of times on here. It's like the upward mobility and like position of entrepreneurship in culture in Europe more broadly is just so different than the States and even US, Canada.
Well, we had Rick Burton, right? Man, we should bring Rick back. Rick was talking about how, man, like everybody that knew that was ambitious in the UK, they just bounced. right? Like why? Like I mean, you guys don't live in the UK anymore. And
I will say, and I agree with that overall, and I still agree with it. The only thing is, because we've been gone for so long, like obviously things change. So it's like the last 10 years I've been gone. There's obviously ambitious people, but comparing it to the US, where it's like, especially for business stuff we're interested in, yeah, to me it's not on the same scale. But there are, you know, to add to what you said, like after 2008 there was the crash, right? Then I moved back around the beginning of 2010s. That was when Bojo, who was, you know, Boris Johnson, I think he was mayor of London, and he was the one, and, you know, it wasn't just him, but that was something he was trying to champion, was tech, right? And like be like, oh, startups and tech and all this stuff that is, you know, because Google and Facebook and all these big tech companies came and started setting up big offices there, and then they were like, well, we need to invest in a startup hub. So I remember going to this thing, Google, what was it called, Google Campus, and that was like this amazing place where like all startups would come. We'd run startup events, we'd like help people, and you get to meet all these people, and it was all like very tech, you know, centric. It was like being in Silicon Valley style places, and everyone's wearing like normal clothes, no suits, and it was that same culture that was exported from the US to the UK. So I think there was that focus, but it was never at the same level of the US, clearly.
Totally.
Right? But I mean, there's been a few companies that have come out of there, but nowhere near on the same level. OnlyFans, yeah, that's true.
Well, I guess the thing I'd say about I agree with all that. The one thing I would add, and I think you guys, I love your thoughts on this. The other big note was that the population is shrinking and getting older. So an older population, they're actually more nostalgic for the days when England was, you know, number one, and that's why they're so supportive of Brexit, right? You know, I think there's a lot of like Brexit was not black and white. It's like a lot of the arguments were, to me, like, oh, it makes a lot of sense from both sides, right? And obviously it's done. There's nothing can be said about now, and ultimately the UK is gonna have to yoke itself closer to America. But I think there's an opportunity. I don't know how much is left, right? Like, so Jack, the factory you worked at is closed now, but you know, as America shifts away from China, they're gonna have to go back to these. They're making massive investments in Germany, for example, right? Like Tesla just opened a giga factory in Berlin. Can UK scoop up some of this? Hey, we need to reallocate our manufacturing to allied nations kind of thing, right? It's like, do you still have that skill set, that muscle memory? So I think that'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of amazing companies in the UK too. Rolls-Royce is one of my favorite.
Like absolutely. Land Rover. Well, I know they're owned by Tata, but like, so yeah, I thought that was a great article. So we should probably put in the show notes, but a little macro NIA. Let's hit some generative AI.
All right, let's talk about it. We got about 15 minutes before your friends joining. So, Trung, before we get into generative AI, I feel like you might have been spending a bit more time in this, being a writer on this stuff, a lowercase j journalist, covering all the tech trends. But just high level, if you were thinking of like AI, is there a way to think of like the different parts of it? Because I know we're using the phrase like generative AI. Are there other kind of like strands that?
Yeah, I mean, like
there's like general AI.
AI has just become, it's just such a throwaway word at this point, right? It's like if you're talking about the biggest AI companies in the world, exactly. The reality is like the biggest AI companies in the world are Apple, Google, right? They have the most data, they have the most computing power, but everything you do in Google is powered by AI in some respect, right? But the most recent one, I think if we're going to nail it down, is a lot of it's built on OpenAI, which was previously a nonprofit. It was started by Sam Altman and Elon Musk and a bunch of other people, Microsoft, Reid Hoffman investors.
And Sam Altman people was the Y Combinator.
Former president of YC, very influential in Silicon Valley. Elon stepped away because he didn't like the direction that AI is going. Elon has said in the past that he thinks that AI, you're gonna summoning the beast, summoning the demons. He believes that AI is possible. This, like, you know, the singularity stuff is like this stuff. People have no idea how crazy this stuff is. So what's interesting with OpenAI is they started initially as a nonprofit, but then they became a for-profit. But they've capped. So Sam Altman's like, people are gonna make so much money from AI, like it's just gonna be that next wave. But they're like, we will cap our investors' money at 100x. And he's like, we think that's reasonable. That's how crazy it's gonna be. It's like, we will cap investors' money at 100x. So they actually just...
When you say cap, what do you mean? The upside
the return,
of the investment?
Yeah.
So
like,
they can keep the rest. Is that the idea?
No, they'll cap the investors, but then they'll put the rest back in the system or find some way to distribute. Yeah.
In the system. All right. Yeah. All right. That sounds a bit like something I've heard in the past. Yeah.
So they just raised at a $20 billion valuation from Microsoft. So Microsoft, it really wants to integrate OpenAI and into its Azure cloud service, because they're like, listen, Azure cloud. We've talked in the past about how big cloud services are, right? Like Azure for Microsoft, AWS for Amazon, and Google Cloud for Google. Those are all $100 billion businesses each. AWS might be $1 trillion business already. So, but you got to feed that monster, right? It's like, okay, what's the next market to use all this computing power? Well, AI is. It's a massive one. So OpenAI's partnership. Microsoft, interesting. But what is OpenAI? So the stuff that we've probably seen and the listeners and viewers have seen is like the generative image models, DALL-E, Stability Diffusion. Our friend Jim O'Shaughnessy is the chairman for that company. Jack and myself have been on his podcast. Those two companies are using OpenAI's open source kind of learning models to do this image generation. And then the other one that you've definitely seen is GPT-3, right? That's a language model where like AI can write text in a science article in the voice of Stephen Hawking. Like that's what it's capable of doing, is because it's read the entire internet. So over the past, I'd say 3 months, there's been an absolute explosion of generative AI startups. But the reality is that most of them, all they're doing is putting a GUI, a graphic user interface on top of underlying open source data, right? Which is fine, because I'll tease it now, but I'm doing something on top of OpenAI for writing and research, and I'm probably going to drop it next week for our listeners. But what's interesting about it is you need a GUI, right? It's like have you guys interacted with any of this stuff? Like, have you interacted with OpenAI?
Yeah.
You played around with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just through the similar things, like people have created a tool and I'm messing around with it.
Exactly. Right. And there's so many. And I think for our purposes, and Bilal joked about it, but I think it's true. It's like what the VC world has done last week, two generative AI companies, Stability Diffusion, which I just mentioned, which makes images based on OpenAI, and then Jasper AI, which does copywriting, specifically copywriting using AI. They both got unicorn valuations. So I think what's interesting about how this will develop is why copywriting. It's because Copy AI is the other company, which we know the two founders, Chris and Paul. It's like, why is it that these companies are the first to really commercialize technology? Somebody brought up a great point. It's like, listen, you need to commercialize in such a way where the enterprise buyers, like, I will save money on this, right? It's like, you have to make them the pitch. AI will write copy for you. It'll convert 10% better. So your $50 investment a month, like, it will return this, right? So those are the industries where, like, finance and marketing, like, instantly you can plug in a number and you'll get a number out for an investment. Those are the things where it'll make the most sense to start. But let me throw it to you guys. Yeah, any thoughts on all that?
No, that was an amazing summary, but I'm just going to bring up two tweets that were shared in the last week. One's from our boy Nat Eliason. If you guys can see my screen, for people listening, I'll just read it out. He just said, I just tried an AI-powered writing app, but I'm so hilariously out of a job. It literally gave me goosebumps. I'm not allowed to share it with you yet, but I will when I can. Please send me new career ideas. Obviously, right? So I don't even know if that might have been an AI writing app.
No, that was for Lex, the Every writing app that they released.
Okay, cool.
Which is on OpenAI, and basically what the main demonstration for that a writing platform is basically, if you highlight a body of text, it will spit out the next paragraph for you. So it's like a great idea generation thing.
Exactly. All right. Right. So, and then the second one is Ali Abdal, who's a YouTuber and who's got a massive newsletter nowadays. But he basically wrote this thread using the AI, and it ended up being the most popular tweet he's ever written.
Yeah, it's everything we just mentioned. It's like he gave a prompt. He's like, I want to write 15 productivity tweets, highlighted it, and it spat out the rest of it. So what I will say is this, is AI. So you've probably used it for years, like, for this really rote, straightforward summary stuff, amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
And that's kind of what I want to get your take on, is like, what parts isn't it amazing at yet? And obviously things can be trained better over time, but just And like literally, I know he's kind of semi-joking and stuff like that, probably, but like what is being replaced and what are the skills that are still going to be very useful? So like if people, a lot of people listen to this, I'm sure are into writing and content creation and stuff. Yeah. So I'm curious from both of you guys, because you obviously, Trung, you're, you know, a paid writer. That's your job, right? And then Jack, you also write a bunch and you also create stuff. So I'm curious, like, how you think it will impact actual jobs and skills. I think
two categories that I can't do. So I can do stuff like copywriting, which is very formulaic, right? Copywriting is like hook somebody with a big word, offer them these 3 value props.
Yeah.
That's very formulaic. Something that's less formulaic is obviously like take J.K. Rowling, building a universe over 8 books, call it 5,000 words, right? Or 5,000 pages, like building a universe, interconnected. Everybody has a story. That not solved yet. I'm not going to bet against OpenAI because just the advances have been so insane. The other thing is that the last example gives like Matt Levine, who we talk about, the Bloomberg finance writer, who writes about finance, but in an extremely entertaining way. Like I'd like to think that I'm 1% of his skill set, but like, you know, I try to give business and tech ideas to people, deliver it in entertain them and educate them. I don't think AI can do that yet. But again, I wouldn't bet against it, figuring that out. And my super last thing, sorry, Jack, I didn't mean to ramble on, but the last thing I'll say is this. I think Jack will agree with this is ultimately what this means is this. If they're commoditizing the ability to write and deliver information, what is the actual value add for an individual? Can you entertain? And it's everything we've been talking about. The personality matters so much more in a world with widespread AI tools. The individual thing, because there can only be one Trung, only one Jack, and one Bilal, right? So that's your monopoly. So you need to lean into that. What is it? What's your life experiences? What can you bring to a writing that no one else that AI can't bring? What connection can you make from your experience? Because at the end of the day, that's the only differentiation you're going to have.
Yeah. Jack, anything else to add there, mate?
No, I agree with that. I think the same idea of tasks that you can automate away physically with machines, that's essentially what Trung is saying, right? It's like anything in the middle that is this like instructable, hey, here are these prompts, summarize this thing, or like take everything that's ever been written about this and turn it into a hodgepodge of all of those things. I'm oversimplifying. Obviously, it's like incredible technology. But that point of the thing that starts to put more value on is the truly scarce perspective, like the stuff that it does not have access to as a machine learning thing, like your experiences, your perspective, your uniqueness, the ability to like imagine and craft the universe and all these different mediums. I think it puts focus on that and makes that stuff more valuable, but at the cost of like swiping a lot of value out of the middle, right? And if you already have distribution, if you already have something that you can like add this to, you're just
Jack, that's the thing.
Running away from the pack with it.
Distribution. This is I think distribution will win in the end because, dude, imagine Mr.
And trusted
Beast.
Distribution too, like we've talked about.
If you're Mr. Beast and you just AI write everything now, you start a book line, it's game over. Mr. Beast starts a young adult book line. He will own that category, right? It's like distribution.
I like that you specified young adult, by the way.
No, but I mean, like, if everything is commoditized, Jack knows this more than anyone. It's the distribution that will win.
Yeah.
If everything else, all things equal, is commoditized.
I wonder if you can tell the difference too. There's like the uncanny valley. You know that concept?
Yeah, uncanny valley. Jack, you want to explain it for the listeners?
Yeah, I think I first heard about it in the context of like video games, where if you're looking at the render of what's supposed to be a person, you kind of empathize with it up to a point, and then when it gets too close, but you know it's not real, there's this massive dip.
It's the 90. Comfort. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like almost there, but not quite there.
I'll give you a very silly example. No, I just want to say, like, do you guys know the Halloween character, the horror movie Halloween with the guy with the mask?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that? One of the reasons it's terrifying, it's uncanny valley. Is like, it looks 90% like somebody's face, but something's just off about it. And also it's part of the horror movie, but you nailed it. It's like at 0 to 10% looking like a human, like a Mario character. You're like, oh, cool. What a cute character. But as it goes from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% looking like a person, it gets more and more creepy until it's to 100. So if you're 90% like a person, you're going to be creeped out. And Jack's asking, is there that for text? That's a great question.
Yeah. And no, I'm also saying, you could potentially detect that. It also pushes all of these mediums, I think, closer to live streaming, real-time output, where if you try to have an AI create a podcast in real time, maybe it could do it. But it just feels like in general, culture is moving way more towards like commentating on stuff in real time from your unique perspective. Like we've talked about this
versus just reporting the news. Like we already get the facts, or the so-called, sorry, that's actually the worst word to use, right. But meaning like what is on BBC, what are being reported as facts anyway. And the more interesting stuff is someone analyzing it or sharing their opinion, like you said, like their unique take on it.
Yeah, it's like the information economy now becomes the perspective economy, or the interpretation economy. That's like,
well, everything becomes color commentary, right?
Yeah,
and it feels like, I don't know. I'm in two minds about this. Whether this is like one of these trends that the technology Twitter gets obsessed with for 3 months and then it abandons. Or it's one of these things that is genuinely like overtaking, even robotics. Like when X number of startups come up and get valued at X, the circles of people that we talk to get really excited about this stuff. And then for it to like become, not necessarily be technically feasible, but it has to be culturally accepted, right? It has to be like people operating this thing at a certain point. So that's just because something is possible doesn't mean it becomes a widely like accepted behavior.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't need to be because it scales infinitely and it just starts to like suck up, the output of these platforms that have distribution can just grow way more significantly.
But I think, Jack, to that point though, like what Trung mentioned earlier, like if you're talking about AI as a whole, like there's been AI for ages, right? It's just like the recent hype has been all this specific stuff that's advanced very quickly and the open nature of it. Like we've been using AI in Gmail for a long time, or Google Chrome browser, or Google Maps, and all these different things for a long time that work really seamlessly. And like we've said on the pod many times before, most people don't even need to know what the word AI is to benefit from using Google Maps when it figures out.
Let me give Bilal the perfect point. Let me add one anecdote to what you're saying. So it's like you guys know SQL, basically Oracle, how they did the databases. It's like, and how you can query databases.
Yeah, SQL,
That, like 30 years ago, SQL was the same hype as AI. So, oh, this company has SQL. Now it's just everywhere.
That's how websites work, what data works,
That's what's going to happen with AI. It's just going to be there. It's going to be functioning all the time. It's going to be helping you make smarter decisions. And the one thing I did want to add, because I know our boy Rob's about to hop on from Reddit, not from Reddit, but he's going to talk about Reddit NFTs, was the two things of interest, which is kind of both to your points, is like, the real value here will be to dig down into certain verticals where you can create like for Bilal,
real use cases.
AIs and Gmail, right? He's like, well, everybody has that. It's like, okay, how do you do this where go to an industry, for example? So Aaron Levy, the CEO and founder of Box, the enterprise company, had a great tweet. He's like, who's going to make the GitHub Copilot? So GitHub Copilot is a program from OpenAI that basically helps coders code. So apparently a lot of companies using that program, their coders are saving 50% of their workday because the OpenAI tool is just auto spitting out what should be written.
That's wild.
So Aaron goes, what is going to be Copilot for the legal industry? What's going to be Copilot for management consulting, right? Using these language models. So I think that's something to think about.
That's very interesting.
Is Rob trying to get into the room?
No, he's not joining yet. When he comes in, I'll add him to the room. Just one thing, what I was also going to say is humor. Like we talk a lot about this on the pod. like the lens of humor. I think also, I think you can program and teach a computer like the idea of comedy and like, you know, the misdirection and like building up suspense and the punchline, like what that means, and feed it many ideas. And who knows, maybe in a written form, in tweet form, it might actually work fairly well. And I actually just saw someone was sharing this, the Levels guy was sharing, Peter Levels. I'm just going to share my screen for a second here. Have you guys ever heard of Tweet Hunter? It's one of these like Twitter tools. I've never really used it, but just while we're waiting for your friend, this is something they just launched, and it's actually got both of you in here, so that's why I thought it'd be interesting. So you can because AI tweet generator.
Do one live.
Yeah, so here's one for Trung, and I'll do both of you. So this, I've got two. I've got Jack, but let's see how good it is. And this is what Tweet Hunter thinks you sound like using.
read one of them. These are not.
Yeah,
read one of them.
There's no jokes here, but this is Trung. So. Yeah, this is just a list. The richest CEOs in the world: Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, blah blah. There's no punchline. There's no shit posting there. That's what I'm trying to see.
They're trying
like,
to be jokes. Some of them.
Oh yeah, which one? Look, cool one.
Look at that top right. Look at the top right.
At most 50% of crypto traders are profitable that others think they are. Okay, yeah.
It's trying.
And, I mean, it would be interesting to know how they do this. Where are they looking at? Because Twitter, all this stuff is open, so maybe they're looking at who's liked that stuff and other tweets they've liked, and then also the language models on top of like similar writings, length. So yeah, there's quite interesting.
Read that one, man. This is so bad.
The Google one? Trump so offended.
Google, I'm sorry. The algorithm said you had cancer. Guy, no, you're sorry. You should have consulted me before making the diagnosis. I don't know what they're using, man.
Yeah.
I think they're just spitting this into. Let's see, Jax.
Okay, so here's Jack. Reward the people who support your work more than people you don't. Okay. All right, your friend is joining. Let me just bring him in as well so he can see us live reacting.
Good morning to everyone. Someone to save you, you're already dead.
That's something Jack would say.
All right, everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Okay, so you're getting a few of these.
Yo, Rob, how's it going, man?
We can stop sharing. Hey, Rob.
Oh my God, look at that. Yo, what a background, dude. All right, so let me introduce Rob. You never met Jack and Bilal. Bilal and Jack, this is Rob, the legend.
Nice to meet you, mate.
What's happening,
it's
man?
Awesome meeting everyone. I'm familiar with you guys. I don't think we ever spoke one-on-one, but yeah, I've seen you through Trung, of course.
Greek Lebanese cat right here. How's that?
Oh, here we go. Love that. Where are you based, man? Or is it secret?
No, it's not secret. I'm like fully doxxed. Address-wise, maybe not as much, but yeah, I'm in Vancouver right now.
Yeah, that's cool. We met in person a couple months ago. He worked at Shopify a year ago, and Raoul now looks for treasure. Can you explain what you're doing on a day-to-day?
Of course. Thank you. So yeah, I was working with Shopify a few months back. That's how I ended up in Canada. And I was helping them onboard their entire workforce they went from office centricity to remote. So we had to onboard 14,000 people onto Slack. Fun times.
And wait, Rob, what's your background though? Why were you perfect for this job? You used to moderate the largest Reddit communities. Is this correct?
Yes, actually, you're right. Like, why was I even picked with that job? It was my background comes from. I graduated as a landscape architect. I have a master's in landscape architecture and worked in London for a few years in landscape architecture. It was fun, but then Reddit kind of changed my path. Through Reddit, I tapped into the media cycles, and understood how the internet works better. I was fascinated by that. And through luck, met Alexis Ohanian, who kind of activated me by telling me like, oh, shit, dude, you have marketable skill. And I was like, wait a minute. So through that, I ended up working in media. My background, like you said, Trung, I went too hard on Reddit, I think. So it's a good way to put it. Like I finished Reddit as a game and then kept playing it.
How much Reddit karma do you have? Where do you rank?
Yes. So right now, I think I'm around rank 2, but for a long time, like years on years.
That's incredible.
Two co-founders of Reddit, and that means you're ahead of one of them.
What Reddit karma is for the people that don't know? What is Reddit karma?
Of course. So I'll explain to you why I'm ranked 2, by the way. But for a long time, I was ranked 1 with about 37 million karma points. So karma is a metric on Reddit to basically just retain your activity. All right.
Okay.
So karma, you get karma points by getting upvotes. You kind of get karma points by upvoting stuff as well. And upvotes are basically like if let's say Twitter was registering the amount of likes you got, so you'd have a total amount of like a pool of total likes.
I'd be up there.
Dude, I was thinking I was about to be like, and Trung would probably be killing it.
No, I've seen your numbers, dude.
Yeah,
You've done some crazy numbers. You've been doing some crazy. Yeah, I don't know if you guys seen Rob's like when he was going hard on Twitter, he was hitting 6-figure likes on the reg. But anyways, dude, karma, back to Reddit.
So on that note, yeah, I kind of after getting a bit bored, I guess, with Reddit, went on Twitter and went ham on Twitter. Yeah, I used to get like impression, like just chunky impression. I just remember you being like, "What are you doing?" And
these numbers are insane.
Yeah, but without getting into that, yeah, Reddit eventually kind of taught me the ropes for community building, for dealing with large audiences, for dealing with noise, online noise. And often that noise is good, often it's neutral, often it's negative. So it's all about listening to communities, knowing, how to set boundaries, guardrails for the community's, safety and of course.
Sorry, I was just going to ask. What are you doing? And what are you doing today? Which is very relevant to why you want to come on. You want to talk about Reddit NFTs. But so tell us first, what is your day job?
Yes, of course. So right now, I'm working with Island, XYZ. Island is a startup. We're building solutions for Web3, and now we're kind of pivoting into still building for Web3, but I think like 75%, I think, of our attention is towards, I don't want to call it Web2, but more creator economy apps. And we've got something really cool soon, but without, taking time to pitch that because it's still under wraps. Island kind of has been great in allowing me to tap into, like still keep legs into web or hands or legs, whatever limbs you want to call, stay in Web 2, but also build in Web 3 and use my network, So I'll be honest with you. What I wanted to talk about today was Reddit, was that, I don't know what to call it. I guess let's call it a successful experiment that Reddit pulled off right now, which is onboarding their they have tens of millions of daily users, but they onboarded a large chunk of their users onto Web3. And the bottom line is OpenSea took about, a few years, of being live. They have about 2.3 million active wallets, but total wallets, that traded on OpenSea. I think that metrics means it's a wallet that has an NFT, basically. That's how they count it. Reddit did the same thing. Wallets that have an NFT and overtook OpenSea in 3 months, and they're at 3 million wallets now, which, as far as experiments goes, like that's crazy pioneer.
Jack was going. So Jack here went really hard on NFTs in 2021.
Yes,
so, Jack, could you comment on what you know so far about the Reddit NFT stuff?
So I've been seeing I haven't dug into it. I have to confess, I maybe 10 episodes ago, I pledged to spend less time down the NFT rabbit hole this year. But I read the volume of trading on Reddit, like it is getting close to some of that like hyper crazy 2021 momentum, which is obviously very significant. That was just complete madness, as everybody on this knows. I don't know a ton about the collection. I know they did something actually before that too, right? They they dropped something in 2021 that was kind of, I think, Ethereum native, and this one's on
we talked about
Polygon.
We mentioned it on the pod like at some point as well.
I'm really curious to dig into it because the mechanics of it are so different than the traditional, or at least the like boilerplate kind of approach to NFT collections that was happening last year. Like the Polygon component, I don't even know the size of the collection, whether there's a limit on the size of participants. I'm assuming there's access way beyond, obviously beyond 10,000 people, but how they've managed to generate that secondary market without a cap on supply and things of that nature, I'm not sure of, but I know
that's a good question.
As you said, it's an incredible testament to how fast they were able to do that, and hopefully a case study in how platforms that have distribution and community can harness this technology. But at the same time, Reddit, I think, was probably one of the most vocally opposed to the NFT narrative in general just last year. So how that was messaged and launched and got people to participate in it, it makes it even more impressive in my eyes, because that was, I think, a pretty widely held belief on that platform that NFTs were either worthless or destructive, or a combination of the both. Yeah. Right.
That's spot on, Jack. It still is right now kind of a hard narrative to sell on Reddit, but the shift is visible. Like, it's palpable. You just log on to almost any crypto-centric or NFT-centric subreddit, and you'll see people actually using that hexagon profile picture on Reddit. That's kind of like the funny thing is, there's so much to talk about, so I'll brace myself, and feel free to just redirect me.
But, can we start initially? Yeah. What is the NFT? What exactly are people getting?
So that's a great question. I want to add one thing on Jack's comment. So Reddit's first experiment wasn't this. They launched, I think, like 4 or 5 crypto snooze, they called it, in summer of 2021. And it was a limited series of 4 crypto snooze. They're individual NFTs. They're not a collection. And they're selling at like 40, 70 ETH or something now. But without talking too much, that was kind of like their first test as far as collectibles went. I wouldn't call that a community effort, just Reddit as a brand releasing NFTs. But now what they did was pretty much they merged both ownership, so digital collectible ownership, with their platform's profile picture customization. So you own one NFT, you can use it to customize your profile picture on Reddit. If you own 2 NFTs, you can mix and match different traits from these 2 NFTs to create kind of a hybrid profile picture. This, in theory, sounds very simple. I was talking with Alexis Ohanian, I think a day or 2 ago. Alexis is the co-founder of Reddit. Funny enough, Alexis, years and years ago, had coined the idea of customizing your snoo avatar. So the old snoo is Reddit's mascot, by the way. This is what's all the NFT art is based on a template that is a snoo, basically, and they just add to it. But yeah, so he had coined that whole customize your avatars. Why not? Wouldn't you want to do that? He was a pioneer without even trying, because that's what made the experiment work. It wasn't that you were buying NFTs. It was you were collecting avatars. They don't call it NFT. It became a meme now. You call it digital collectibles on Reddit. But yeah, Trung, like I do have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to let you.
Let's just confirm. To confirm, then, right now, what you described, that's NFT. You can mix and match kind of features, and it's the avatar. And
Trung, I'm just sharing the screen for a second. This is what the co-founder of Polygon tweeted out, like I think in the last day. So just as a visual, does that look about right? Just for people watching, there's like it says collectible avatars. You can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. It said 3 million wallets.
Walk through the numbers.
Yeah. So he said 3 million wallets, 99% unique owners, few whales in brackets, 100 million market cap, native Reddit community, organic, no crypto Twitter noise, price pumped in, etc. Fast, affordable, carbon neutral minting built on Polygon. So yeah, obviously he's the co-founder of Polygon, but like a really good, impressive numbers. And I think we've talked about this on the pod before. Just like something you said earlier kind of stuck out to me, which was people don't even need to call them NFTs. They don't need to know like what's going on in the background. That's exactly what we've talked about. Where if we actually believe in use cases, people shouldn't have to be figuring out like what's a MetaMask wallet and like how do we. Why do we use this just to pump our own bags and stuff like that, which was the initial pump of it. But this one is like, I'm already using Reddit. I'm already a community member. I'm already trying to get my karma points up. And this is a new way for me to stand out and get, whatever benefits there might be. So, it seems like very interesting.
So what are idea. Rob, why don't you walk through like what makes this unique to Reddit, first of all, and like what ultimately long road, what's the benefit of having this?
Of course. So you where do I start? The idea here, I would say maybe why was this successful? It's not because of the customizing avatar, concept. It's because this was accessible. People didn't have to learn any ropes. The way this worked, Reddit, you have an account on Reddit. it pinged you at one point in the past 4 months or so, or throughout the past 4 months. It pinged you being like, hey, do you want a free NFT? I don't think they even called it NFT, like a free avatar or something as a digital collectible. And you would have to, if you click no, it would ask you again, are you sure you don't want this free thing? And it was a funny kind of way they worded it. Most people actually clicked yes. At first, no one cared because they didn't really have a value. But slowly, as they, I guess, started more talking about it, and when they released season 1, that included the artists, with limited collections. It wasn't just random avatars on Reddit. I remember seeing the shift kind of go from, well, early on, when they released the profile pictures on Reddit, people hated that. They were like, what? Why would I customize my snoo? And then now it's normal. Everyone has a profile picture snoo that you customize. It can be done even without the digital collectibles. It can be done with, I think, just some base assets that you get for free on
and
Reddit.
Snoo's the alien looking thing, right?
Yes, Snoo is the alien mascot. And that's, I would say the one thing that worked is the fact that Reddit kind of became the, what's the word? It's escaping me. It's going to come back to me. I think if you're,
if we had AI for this.
Oh man, there you go. So as a custodial service, so Reddit was creating, sorry, I was actually looking through my notes. So Reddit held your hand throughout the creation of your wallet, crypto wallet, which was integrated with your account. So all you have to do was click probably yes, and then you ended up with the key phrase, which is like, let's say, the password for your wallet, for your crypto wallet, embedded in your Reddit account. And you can access that on your official app. You go on your account, don't need to go with the steps now. To be fair, it's a bit wonky. They could make it much more simple. But I think Reddit was still not shoving that in everyone's faces. And that was part of the success. So you have an account on Reddit, you click yes, you get some free shit. They end up in your vault. And then most people realized after months, of having these free things that they were worth something. I remember I bought my first 2 after I saw season 1. I was like, cool, Reddit avatars. I don't care, even though I was kind of in Web3. And then I bought 2 from the top 2 artists right now, one called Rojum and the other one, Tyler Fust, friends with both actually. And after 2-3 months, I just checked OpenSea and they were worth like 1-2 ETH.
Not investment advice.
Not investment advice, but I went ham on season 2 and I have like 45 pieces now that are worth more than I've ever made in
Jack
this space.
is
like
looking proud over
there.
there.
No, Jack's like getting PTSD. So
Jack's like, no way.
So Rob, we have a really funny joke from you. I don't know how much of this show you've listened to, but Jack basically documented his entire NFT journey here. And he bought Bored Ape really early, then went to NFT and NYC. He's like, you know what? I think this is the top. Sold his Bored Apes and bought a house. Having said that, he's still a believer in the technology, but still has a crypto punk. But what I think is funny is Jack's just like, this is a summary of my 2021. Jack, give me some
congrats on the house, Jack.
Thank you.
That's the real. Yeah, that's the real.
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing about this, in the context of the character that already had all of this, we talk about this a lot. It's like there's all this equity built up in this character, the platform. People love Reddit. And as you were talking, I was actually thinking about those. I'm going to get the name wrong. They're like brick bears. Is it brick bears they have where they're like
they're toys, right? Really, they're like patent plastic toy looking things, right?
Yeah, like a really recognizable silhouette, and it's like a streetwear. Yes. They get graffiti, like they become this canvas, and I think that's a really interesting lesson for people in NFTs in general. Is like what this has done is been able to like allow people to interact with this thing they already care about in a new, different, interesting way, support artists while like having this recurring loop of interactivity versus OpenSea for the majority of 2021, which was these the interactivity is occurring just in this marketplace. Like maybe people set it as their avatar on Twitter, but it wasn't integral to the community on which it was built in. So I'm not surprised Alexis Ohanian's been like top of mind and thinking about this for such a long time, and why, I mean, he instantly got and is part of a lot of those other communities that aren't native to Reddit. But
that's a great point, because Alexis obviously has a dedicated Web3 fund, so he's like, man, this is something I've been working on for.
He just got
mentally.
it.
Well, actually, the question I had is, how involved is he still with Reddit? Because I think he's stepped away a long time ago, right? So I don't know how involved he would be with something like this. I'm sure he's still close to them. Okay.
He's I would say maybe as like, back end advisory kind of like involved, but he's not.
But he's not
actively,
like on the board.
He's cheering it on though, right? He's like, this is great. Like this is like okay.
He actually did green thumbs up it. So of course, publicly he supported that. I don't know how much he did on the back end, but he did build the foundation for that. Now then again, like I know that the Reddit crypto team is pretty small compared to their other teams. I don't know how that's changing now. I don't want to, speak too much, but I had people reach out, be like, "Hey, are you interested to talk more?" I'm like, "Oh, now you're interested." But
now you want my karma points.
Now, man, the CEO of Reddit, Steve Hoffman, once called me. Someone asked him during an AMA, like, "Why don't you hire GallowBoob?" Me, I'm GallowBoob. Sorry for the username. It's just out.
GallowBoob. Yeah.
Years ago, I don't even know where it came from, but he was like, "Why would I buy the cow if I'm getting the milk for free or something?"
Ooh, damn.
Now it's time to buy the cow. I'm kidding.
Yo, Butcher. What do you think about that? Jack doesn't. He's like, this value. Yeah, this is
the Web3 promise, right? You should have those karma points in fungible tokens. You can just cash that shit out.
Okay. So
any ownership. Give me any ownership.
I need to put this to you, Rob. This is the criticism of Web3 and NFTs, and look what happened to Opensea. The volume's all way down. Everything's shit to bed. Why is what Reddit doing is different, and why is the outcome not going to be the same a year from now? Please.
Oh man, that's the question actually. Sincerely, man, why did this blow up the way it did? Why did it reach volumes that it's still? Like I sent you a link on Twitter. There's a tracker that shows you individual pieces from the Reddit collection, that Reddit avatar, and their prices. The top one is at some 15 ETH right now in a bear market. 15 ETH, which is 25,000 or so, or $20,000. So why did that blow up during kind of an all-time low? I would say, like you said, OpenSea volume is low. NFT trading volume is extremely low. It used to be like in the thousands daily on different collections. Now it's like 100. The top collections is at 100 ETH or so. I honestly think that people during the bear market, everyone's kind of in it together. No one knows what's happening. No one can predict the future. But what you can predict is more the adoption. So seeing these big brands like Starbucks hop on board, they changed their I don't know if it's live yet, but they did announce changes coming to their reward system. It's going to live on the blockchain. It's going to be on Polygon. The good thing with the Polygon as a chain is that it's gas efficient. I mean, you're going to pay a cent compared to $50 for a transaction compared to Ethereum, which is crazy. Ethereum gas fees are crazy. But anyway, I would say this got to the heights it's at now, and it's going to grow even further. That's what I believe. Because that was the first proven Web3 onboarding experiment that actually worked without the technical confusion, without any learning. You didn't need to know anything. You just had to make an account. And that was Reddit is not another startup. It's not like your other crypto project trying to launch a shitcoin or something. So they were established. They had that. They had already an audience. And they proved everyone else that it's possible. Everyone is talking on crypto Twitter every day about onboarding and adoption. How do you onboard the masses? Literally, it's the thing to solve. It's the golden problem that if you solve, you're in it. So Gabe Layden, he's the CEO of Limit Break. Limit Break is a Web3 company that's doing games. So games in Web3, video games. He did really well. Don't want to talk too much about it, but he launched a free mint, free NFTs. They're worth like 15 ETH now. called Digidagaiku. He's creating like the NFT factory, free to own. The more people own, the more people are onboarded. But what he did was, like, he's trying to solve that question. He's trying to onboard the masses. How do you bring everyone over to Web3? Reddit did that. So everyone saw that, and they see the proof of what's the word? Like the proof that this works.
Rob, so you brought up a great point, because a previous episode, Bilal and Jack, you guys remember we talked about the Starbucks Polygon thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And basically our takeaway from that was this is it's just going to be in your Starbucks app, right? It's a mass onboarding of 40 million users.
Yeah.
Don't even have to use the word NFT. I believe it's star points or something. But Rob, this goes back. So I understand. Okay. So I will give credence to the mass onboarding of users to Web3. So now these people, without even knowing it, they're in Web3 now. They have the potential to interact with the rest of the Web3 economy through Reddit as a portal. Same with what Starbucks will do with this rewards program. But now I still want to get very specific. Like a year or two from now, okay, you've been onboarded into Web3 through Reddit. Cool. What's next for me? What is the benefit to actually derive from being onboarded? Or will I not care a year from now that I've been onboarded onto Reddit through Web3 via Reddit?
Yeah, great question. Like, I'll be honest, it might be blunt, but the first benefit to being early on something in Web3 is profit, is financial returns.
Sure.
Do you know the type of posts I've been seeing? There's a few subreddits, but one of the main ones is r/avatar trading. You go there if you need to keep track of it. It's the core Reddit NFT audience. This is where it grew. The people are posting about, like, what happened? I bought something for $100 2 months ago, or a month ago, or a week ago, and now it's worth $20,000, $25,000. And these people are talking as, like, I don't know where they live, but like, that's a lot of money for some people. And also that is a really good incentive to show you that there is a way other than 9 to 6 to make money. And that's the crazy part, is like, I know Web3 is not only about making profits. It shouldn't be. That's not the end goal. But this is kind of the bait that keeps you here. You're like, wait, what? I can print money and ETH, and ETH might appreciate over time. Cool. Let's trade some JPEGs. These Redditors kind of drank the Kool-Aid, I guess, now, or took the pill, whatever you want to call it. Not necessarily in a bad way. They are aware of what Web3 can do. They're aware that there's financial returns there. They also are part of a community. It feels good, man. I remember the first time I got part of, like, I onboarded a Web3 community by minting a project. It was Chain Runners. It felt good to be part of. And I come from Reddit. I'm usually in these anon communities that nothing is binding us together. Like, we don't have, what, do you like dogs? That's why you're there? Cool. Past that, no one cares. There's no bond. But with Web3, with these tribal projects, I would say, there's a bond. And that feels good sometimes to find belonging. But yeah, like, to your question, what are these people going to do with that knowledge a few years from now? In the case where most companies and most products are going to adopt like a seamless Web3, integration, nothing on your end. You just click a few buttons. But now, instead of like you bought some skins on Fortnite, you can resell the skin on Fortnite. That's the whole point. And the skin can appreciate. It can also depreciate. I would say down the line, these people are going to, like, now the door is open for them, and whatever they want to do with this, whether it's a hobby or professional career pivots, they can. And that's the crazy part, is everyone in this space that I know of wasn't an expert. They had no idea, but a door opened, they walked through, and then they found friendship, community, professional and hobby opportunities unlike anywhere else.
Do you know if Reddit will integrate with the karma system? Because that to me seems like the no-brainer. Like, this to me is the clearest use case. I don't know. Do you know if that is being put out there?
So like, I'm not going to play games and tell you I know things in alphas. There are certain things that I would choose not to speak of.
You're sitting on a gold mine, brother.
But dude, if they tokenize karma and I can do anything with that amount, I'm going to, first of all, give back to the people, and second of all, cash in. Like, to be honest, it would have been like, I am grateful for Reddit, but I spent too long on there. I have like a good feeling, but also some regret. That would erase all the regret. Tokenize it.
Yeah.
But like they did this for the subreddit cryptocurrency or something. So one of these cryptocurrency subreddits, you can when you have karma via posting, via commenting, and people liking that and upvoting that, you accrue a token actually called moon something, moon points. I forgot what it is. But regardless of the names, you can actually farm your tokens now, but it's sub-specific, so subreddit specific. It's not throughout Reddit. I think if they do open the floodgates for tokenizing all karma, I don't know how it would work, but seeing how successful this experiment was, I kind of want to think the sky's the limit for these creatives right now, being like, let's experiment some more, you know? And yeah, experiment on my karma, dude.
Well, Jack, I'd like to ask Jack and Bilal. So what is your takeaway from Reddit staying here? Is it another hype cycle, or is there something uniquely different about how this rolled out?
I think it's different because I think the thing we've seen in the last year or so is people get excited about the technology and then try and use the technology as the product, right? It's like, I'm interested in Web3. And you saw all the people that were interested in the creator economy 2 years ago are now interested in Web3, right? And truly what they're interested in is making money on the internet. That's what they care about.
Yeah,
and like making friends, making money on the internet. Who doesn't want to do that? It's fun, right? So what I think we can see from this example is like, this is a vehicle. Like, you have to build the product that people care about first if you want this thing to be sustainable. That's why it's going to work for Starbucks, why it worked for Reddit. In some cases, there have been NFTs that the art resonated in such a way that they were able to leapfrog the product stage and back promise that they're going to build a product that's going to make this thing useful. The other thing is, like, Reddit in itself is an economy without a currency. Right? This is already an established economy without a currency. What NFTs do in this context is they introduce a currency that is mapped to status in this case, because, you know, this represents this artist you care about. There's 50 of these. You have to be, you know, you had to have been there at the time this came out. You have to have, you know, understood who this artist was, saw value in this before everyone else. So it's like perfectly mapped to the dynamics of the community as they already exist. And you get to extract some of the value that you created by doing enough interaction on the platform to create 36 million karma points, right? You're getting, maybe you're able to make 25 grand. You've been contributing to Reddit for 10 years for 8 hours a day. And people think that's insane, when really it's like, no, you're part of the reason this works in the first place, right? You're now, like, finally it clicks that you are the thing that creates the value on the platform, and you can extract some of that back. And that's, I think, going to be true. And when that light bulb goes off, people really get it. In the context of Reddit, I think it's different because you will go back to Reddit regardless of whether or not the NFT appreciates or depreciates, which is not true for 99% of other NFT collections. The floor drops below a certain price, dead, gone, ruined forever. Right, Reddit has this.
It's based on the price versus Reddit you're using anyway, and like the reason you spent thousands of hours.
This is let me. Sorry, but I want to add one thing to Bilal's point, and then Bilal, I want to finish that. So the thing I want to say was this: is something that Rob you mentioned was Web3 was using Twitter as its home, right? But that integration was so clunky between actually the communication, the ability to create value. You guys are, as we've all talked here for 30 minutes, I'm getting the Reddit play. It's a huge onboarding. There will be a digital native, pure digitally native economy. And Reddit just had made a huge play to be the portal for that. And I think that connection, apart from Twitter, which was so janky, right? It's like you were doing something on Opensea, you're bringing it onto Twitter. Now Reddit's just all in one place. Bilal, sorry for cutting you off.
No, I think I disagree with everything you guys were saying. The only thing I'd say in addition to that is I think overall it's just a positive thing. Like if people have now being, basically there's some people on Twitter who are saying, oh, these old Reddit people were complaining about NFTs and now they're changing their mind. Well, that's a good thing. That's exactly what happens with new things. When you first encounter something, you don't know enough about it, or you only see the bad side of it, and then things get developed and new things become better. And that is exactly what's happened here. So for them, they actually got to play around with it like all of us did and saw something. That is the key insight though, right? Like you just hear an idea, it sounds stupid, and then you play around with it and magically someone drops magic money in your pocket and you're like, oh, that definitely is another incentive for you to be like, maybe I'm going to learn a bit more about this, because that's that's just how humans work. I don't even want to say unfortunately, that's just how we are.
How it is.
Yeah, and then the second point is what we've been saying throughout every single episode of this podcast, and is distribution, right? Like they have an inherent community that is already there for a reason, and this is just another way of making it slightly better. And it's an experiment, but they're going to keep developing it and figuring out how do people actually gain more utility out of this. Now we've got this financialization part in NFTs. Can we actually create new use cases we didn't think about before, which is the whole promise of Web3 in the first place? And now can we go and play with other platforms, because we've already built it on Polygon, and Polygon is a side chain of Ethereum, and that is going to play with Opensea and all the other things. So it's not just locked in to Reddit, which is, I mean, again, without knowing the details of the technical side, I'm assuming if it's built on Polygon, that means it's being settled on Ethereum eventually, and that means they can now use that in other areas, which is again the big Chris Dixon thread we all shared like a year ago about what the future of Web3 would be and all that stuff. That is the benefit, is how do we get to the next phase of the internet? And so I think it's a positive thing. And the last thing is Starbucks. I'll just reiterate, I think that will be an even bigger thing potentially in terms of scale, because of how many people use it and actually use it in the real world. And so if you start bringing in those same mechanics and ideas that we're now used to, earning points that are actually worth something versus just a random number in an account that makes you look good, then that is another benefit of building in this way. So overall, I think it's just a positive thing.
Man, Bilal, you're spot on. I think it's one thing you said about like not governance, ownership or something. That's a big part of it. Of course, there's community. Of course, there's financial benefit, but there's also ownership. Man, like I'm tired. I'm a terminally online person. I spend too much time sifting through content. Trunk probably no. Well, Trunk is probably the same.
Well, actually, Rob, I actually did want to do a slight pivot on that point. I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about being, I mean, you literally used to make things go viral on the internet, because Reddit was the nexus of virality. Around Know Your Meme, the website, did a study of where memes go viral. Obviously, Reddit had a period between, I think, 2015, 2017, where it was a hub. Now it's like more Twitter, TikTok. You were doing your thing there. So can you just talk us through, we love talking about this on this podcast, is like, what makes something viral? Like, what are the mechanisms, man? Like, just talk us through your experience and like lessons of that.
Of course. So, it relates to what I was about to say. So the, I guess where I'm at right now is that there are so many apps, so many social apps that are free. All right. Most of them were pretty, I don't know what the word is. I'm trying to be like polite, but they were pretty greedy in distribution of their ad money, any revenue. So as a user, you were just using these services for free. All right. But you were kind of like, but that was the catch. They were cashing in and you were losing a lot of time.
Yeah, you're the product. You're the
product. You're losing like 8 hours of your day, dude. Do you know how much you can make out of this? Just time. Time is money. You can invest that time in anything else. It's probably going to return better than like having memes on your brain before you try to sleep at night, or some fails videos and whatnot. So right now, the idea with Reddit, let's say tokenizing their karma, or your time spent on any app being valued in a way that is not just an imaginary number. Because like Reddit gave me 37 million karma points. They're worth nothing. What can I do with them? Nothing. I can show it as like a marketer would, be like, this is my proof of something. It's not even true on Reddit, because I'm always posting, not as a publisher, I'm posting to communities. So no one cares that it's coming from me, But to that point, coining the viral trends is all about like finding these trends, finding community behavior, identifying it, knowing how to package content that caters to that trend, to that community, to that hype, and speaking the same language. So not parroting as much, but it is it's observing Reddit subreddits, let's say, or Twitter threads or Twitter trends, and being like, right, I'm going to cater a meme to that thing or cater a thread to that thing. And it works.
Well, let's get tangible. You used to do our next effing level, right? That was one of the ones you moderated. I followed. So that's our 8 millionth member. So when you're moderating next effing level, what were you seeing that consistently bubbled to the top? Like, what were you identifying when you're moderating that one?
Yeah, there are a lot of common grounds in terms of non-political stuff, just global news that everyone relates to. Let's say some technological advancements that helps all our assets survive longer or live better.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So people
I noticed
love
a lot
that.
of those. I noticed a lot of look at this robot clean up this natural disaster zone. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a great point.
I don't even know what to call that content, but I would say, let's say wholesome, wholesome, hopeful content. And then these are relatable because who doesn't want to see the advancement of humanity, let's say. But then you go into very relatable socio-political content. You're going to always cater to these audiences on Reddit and make a lot of karma. At first I was like, cool, let's talk politics. And then I found out the hard way that that's a bad idea. So I stepped away from it and focused on more wholesome news, good news, but also a lot of artists and creators. So I would identify these artists and creators that didn't have an audience, but had a really cool concept they were, doing, whatever. It's a video or some art, photography. And I would find them on some niche blogs. I would package their content and distribute it in specific subreddits that I know for a fact like this type of content. And these people would go viral overnight. I wish I kept a flip book of the amount of people I actually put on the map indirectly, not like they reached out to me. I never met them before. I found their content online. And that was a kind of a fun eye opener for me. Just to see that, oh, you go viral on Reddit or on Twitter, and the next day you're on Hello America or Good Morning America, whatever show it is. And people's lives are made. They start businesses. They start, I've seen people thrive through that. Good for them.
So this is just to summarize. The two things I say is it sounds like your ability to make things go viral was number one, really understanding the verticals. I love how you explain the next Evan level one. It's listen, it's just common knowledge, wholesome content, advancing humanity, new technology people have never seen. Get it done, right?
Yeah,
and
relatable.
Yeah, relatable. And then you finding artists around the internet and putting them your knowledge of what subreddits and what content they want. Man, dude, the classifications you're brain must just be insane, man. How many subreddits are there? Hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds of thousands. At one point, I was moderating about if you added all these audiences from each subreddit together, I think I was moderating about 60, 70 million people. They can be, the same people in different subreddits, but the volume was crazy. And it turned into, it was fun. It was learning experience for me, but it turned from a hobby to an unpaid job. So I stepped back, of course.
Right.
Same number of people as Rishi, isn't it?
Yeah.
70 million. We opened this podcast with a talking British about Prime the Minister.
New British Prime Minister.
Oh,
yeah. Literally the same amount. Yeah, that's even more actually. That's amazing, man.
Yeah, did you guys have any questions about the Reddit? I'll just have
the last question on that. You mentioned essentially it being an unpaid job, but you still loved it originally and you had to step back, probably took up too much time. I'm just curious what the motivation was for doing it in the first place and sustaining that. I'm sure originally it was just always kind of fun to be involved and you had the time to do it, but then you're down the rabbit hole and you're like, damn, this is taking up 12 hours a day, or I don't know how long you're spending on it. And because to me that is quite a fascinating idea of the internet. It's actually a really beautiful thing that there are people in the world who want to contribute in that way, and you're one of those people. And the one I think of similarly is Wikipedia, right?
Yes.
Most people are contributing to Wikipedia. Apparently, it's a very small group of people who run 80% of it in terms of keeping up to date. So I'm just really interested in the psychology of what kept you doing that for such a long time.
So it's a great question, Bilal, and I wonder what. Maybe it's different for other people than it is for myself. But for me, it was, of course, I'm a gamer. I grew up playing games. if you give me a score around my life, trust me, I'll become a billionaire next year because I have a score that follows me around telling me, great move, combo. Today you made like a record breaking. So seeing these points accrue on Reddit and overall seeing that you can keep adding to those points and have a metric that you follow being like, oh, success, even though it meant nothing, that kind of kept me going, just sheer grinding numbers. But with that, of course, it's not just that. It comes with meeting humans, seeing an actual impact, often positive impact of some of your actions, let's say as a moderator, moderating a community, allowing some healthy discussions to happen, some crazy discourse to happen, and then being contributor. So posting these content pieces or comments that generate some really amazing exchanges. Like I would post something really cute. I would log on after an hour or two that it went viral on Reddit, and I would read comments being like, wow, this made my day, or that's adorable. And here's my dog too. Like this stuff made my day by association.
Yeah.
And there's also some obsessive aspect of when you do something that works as a human, you kind of want to do it again. You know, that's how often like you go from an interest to like a hobby to become an expert. For me, it was a lot of that, figuring out that it was working, not knowing what to do with it. And the catalyst, I think, was Alexis Ohanian speaking to me, and as someone from his, background and status, and someone as kind as this dude, telling me that, oh, you can do something with that knowledge or skills or whatever. He was right. A lot of marketing, groups are after that kind of like, how do you make things go viral? Or a lot of creators, a lot of platforms want that strategy of how do you recreate what Reddit did and whatnot. And a lot of people want to shill stuff, like they're like, sell my shitty product, or sorry for the word. But yeah, it was interesting. I would say that what kept me going was at first score, then community, and at the end it became
the score was
I
one.
Love
yeah.
I love you being honest. It's like, guys, there's a freaking score, man. Like
there's
I'm
a counter.
2. Yeah, I'm number 2.
Yeah. There's a counter. But yeah, the end was like, it became kind of like an experience. It defined me as a person. I was known online. I have a Forbes article thanks to my Reddit shenanigans. So yeah, I got blessed in a lot of ways just by spending a lot of time on that platform. And even to this day, like I really appreciate you guys being kind, but I still don't consider myself anything, like I'm not an expert or anything. I'm just someone who spent a long time online, who got exposed to a lot of different, trends, cultures, and events on
you
the
understand
internet.
The internet, dude. There's just no
That's
question
it, dude.
about it.
Terminally online.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, one thing I'll say, and I don't want it to sound negative, but the end goal for me is to actually unplug from the internet because it's fun. It's a lot of noise. So now, as you know, Trung, I'm moving houses next week. I went from the city, unplugged from the city. I'm going to some green forest. Like I live by the edge of a forest. Yeah, just
smart.
No people, no roads, just some peace. And maybe that way I can like get a healthier relationship with, being online.
It might give you a higher possibility to stay plugged online if you can just do the complete
balance.
opposite. Yeah,
exactly, man, a balance. But yeah. Oh, and one thing, by the way, before we run out of time, you know what the biggest thing with the Reddit NFT boom, let's call it, the biggest thing for me was watching the culture clash of the Redditor NFT crowd. They're new traders. They don't have a lot of experience. Some do, but the majority don't because they got airdropped a free NFT. They didn't do anything for it. The clash of that culture with the crypto Twitter culture, it is wild popcorn all over the place, but it's beautiful too because it goes from, like everything, it goes up and down and up and down. And sometimes you want that up and down to keep going upwards, not down. So that's like growth and scale. It's going up and down. There's a lot of positive noise and a lot of slap fights, but a lot of education being shared. And it's beautiful. I've never seen anything of this scale in Web3 or Reddit for that matter.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
But by the way, how do I check if I haven't been on Reddit for a while? Or if someone's listening to this?
By the way, how are you? How do I see if I have one of these $20,000?
No, all jokes aside, though, I'm curious because I used to use Reddit every day for a long time, and then in recent times I haven't used it as much. But was it just dropped to like a certain group of people? Or what was that?
That's a good question. I've been trying to track back. So same situation with my wife, where because season 2 was so successful of the avatars, the Reddit avatars, People were paying like $100 and then selling it for $1,500 an hour later. We were like, okay, let's activate your crypto vault on Reddit. Let's do it. You're going to be ready next time.
I'm checking my phone now, dude.
I think you need the official Reddit app. You need the Reddit app. I think you can still claim the free NFTs. So they have one collection that has 600,000 NFTs, on Opensea. These are the free avatars that Reddit airdrops you. You do get to claim that. To be fair, it's worth like 0.01 or 0.02, which is like $20-$30 for something free.
Yeah.
It's not awesome, but what you need to know is that Reddit they have more seasons coming. I'm in talks with the artists themselves. These people had no idea that was going to be successful. Reddit reached out. They're like, do you want to scribble a snoo? And they're like, cool. And then they, did all the technical work. And now these people are famous. They're on every podcast, every spaces on Twitter with the biggest creators. So I think Reddit has a lot more coming from seasons. So NFTs you can mint. And by the way, you don't mint it with crypto for now. They only accept Stripe, so fiat payment. Dollar payment. They have that coming, more seasons, but the biggest thing is I can't find it. I'll find it and send it to you, Trung. They have a roadmap visual that says, these are the things we're doing now. Cool. And then they have roadmap 2.0, with like the redacted thing. So they do have plans. When token, when karma. They will probably launch a marketplace. It will be for Reddit avatars, but it also will have to be open for everything else. And on that note, I've had so many creators reach out and founders to be like, hey, can we actually integrate our trades with the avatars on Reddit? Can I launch a collection and actually, like whatever, the Trung, llamas, you can actually interchange your traits with the Reddit traits. So people are thinking big, and I bet you Reddit is thinking even bigger, especially now.
Nice. Awesome, man. Anything else from you guys before we close out? That was really, really cool, man.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing all that today.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and dropping knowledge, man. I just want to say, again, I'll be very honest, like in the first 20 minutes, I was pretty skeptical. I'm like, this just sounds like another NFT thing. But as we talked more, the onboarding part's huge to me. The native integration with Reddit 360, right? Like a Twitter versus like when you had the Twitter and OpenSea kind of connection, that was like a little bit janky. And listen, people want to live in digital economies, man. People spend millions in Fortnite. It's like, I get it. People want to spend money in the digital economy. This Reddit as a digital economy, it makes a lot of sense to me, like a ton of sense. So yeah, I think it's a super interesting, super successful launch. And then how will the next couple of years play out? It'll be super interesting.
Yeah. I'm curious if Twitter does the same thing or something similar. There were talks that they are. I don't know how that would look, but I'm here for it.
We'll have to see what Elon thinks on Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually a great point. They'll launch it right before they hand it off to Elon, but we'll see. I really appreciate the time, and lovely to meet you guys. Anytime you want to talk, I'm here.
Love it. Yeah, definitely, man. All right, man. And thanks again for listening. We appreciate you guys. Let us know what you think of this on Twitter and Telegram group. Do us a favor, write us a quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You could on Spotify, you don't have to write. You just press 5 stars.
Hit the stars. Just hit the stars.
We don't normally ask for that one, but that'll be helpful if you haven't done it before. That's always helpful. And we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Thank you.
Peace out.